broken from George Bush on things like torture and climate change. He can legitimately claim to have broken with the president. He deserves credit with that. But when it comes to the central issue of this election, when it comes to the economy, the plain truth is that Senator McCain has stood with this president every step of the way. He hasn't been a man on the economy, he's been a sidekick. After 21 months, after 3 debates, Senator McCain still has not been able to tell the American people a single major thing he'd do differently from George Bush when it comes to the economy. I mean, you watch the ads, he doesn't point to how he's going to move to the future, all he does is talk about me. But I think the American people have come to understand that if John McCain wants to give $700,000 tax cuts to the average Fortune 500 CEO, that's not change. It's not change when he wants to give $200 billion to the biggest corporations, or $4 billion to the oil companies despite record profits, or $300 billion to the same Wall Street banks that got us into this mess. It's not change when the tax plan he comes up with doesn't give a penny of relief to more than 100 million middle-class Americans. Well, here's the fact, Virginia. We've tried it John McCain's way. Just like we've tried it George Bush's way. And deep down, Senator McCain knows that, which is why his campaign said that if we keep on talking about the economy, we're going to lose. Which is why we keep on talking about the economy. Meanwhile, Senator McCain's campaign said in these last few weeks, calling me everything but a name of God, but a child of God. Because that's how you play the game in Washington. When you can't win on your ideas, you try to tear your opponent down. You try to make a big election about small things. So we may see a little bit more of that over the next 21 hours. You may have to talk to your grandma or your parents or your spouse. They may have been hearing some negative ads. You're going to have to be ambassadors on our behalf. But that kind of say anything, do anything politics that's calculated to divide and distract, to tear us apart, instead of bringing us together, we have a chance to beat back that kind of politics in this election. Not just in the short term. We can put an end to it in the long term. We can show that negative politics is no match for the will and determination, the decency of the American people. That's what we've tried to show in this election. That you can keep your dignity, keep your decency, and still win. That's what this election is partly about. Prove that we're more than a collection of states or just a collection of individuals. We're a union that over decades we've strived to perfect. That's who we are. That's the country we need to be right now. But Virginia, I know these are difficult times. And as we enter into Election Day, I think all of us understand that change isn't going to happen overnight. But I also know that we've faced difficult times before. The American story has never been about things coming easy. It's been about rising to the moment when the moment was hard. About rejecting fear and division for unity of purpose. That's how we overcame war and depression. That's how we won the great struggles for civil rights and women's rights and workers' rights. That's how we'll write the next chapter of the great American story. And it will start tomorrow here in Virginia. Part of that process is to understand, just as Tim Kaine and Mark Warner understand, that if we want to meet the challenges of this moment, we're going to have to get beyond the old ideological debates, the old divides between left and right. Listen, we don't need bigger government or smaller government. That's an argument dating back to the 60s. What we need is a smarter government, a better government, a government that is fighting for ordinary citizens. An honest government that upholds our values. That's what this election's about. The choice in this election isn't between tax cuts and no tax cuts. John McCain and I both want to offer tax cuts. The question is, who do we give them to? Do we only reward those who are already wealthy, already lucky, already on top? Or do we reward the workers, the nurses, the teachers, the firefighters, those who are working hard every day, who make this country work, who produce the wealth. I want to give a tax break to 95% of Americans who work every day, get taxes taken out of their paycheck every single week. And I want to help pay for this by asking folks who are making more than $250,000 a year to go back to the tax rate they were paying back in the 1990s under Bill Clinton. Now let me see a show of hands. This is a pretty big crowd. This is a representative sampling. How many people make less than $250,000 a year? Raise your hand. So no matter what John McCain may claim, here are the facts. If you make under $250,000 a year, you won't see your taxes increase by a single dime. Not your income tax, not your payroll tax, not your capital gains tax. No tax. And by the way, 98% of small business make less than $250,000 a year. And we're going to give them tax breaks. And 99.9% of plumbers make less than $250,000 a year. The last thing we should do in this economy is raise taxes on the middle class. When it comes to jobs, the choice in this election is not between putting up a wall around America or standing by and doing nothing. Look, the truth is we're not going to be able to bring back every single job that's vanished because some of it has to do with technology, shifts in manufacturing. We've got a new global environment that's more competitive. But that doesn't mean we stand by and do nothing. Right? We should be promoting trade agreements that have worker protections and environmental protections and reciprocate so that we can sell our goods into China and South Korea like they sell their goods here. We need to put an end to tax breaks for companies that are shipping jobs overseas. Give those tax breaks to companies that invest here in the United States of America. We can create 2 million new jobs by rebuilding our crumbling roads and bridges and schools, laying broadband lines in the rural communities so companies can locate there, creating a new electricity grid so that we can bring renewable sources of energy to population centers that need them, invest $15 billion a year in renewable sources of energy, building wind turbines and solar panels, creating the next generation of biofuels, investing in clean coal technology, making sure that we're building the new generation of fuel-efficient cars, not in Japan, not in South Korea, but right here in the United States of America. We can... Jobs that can't be outsourced, jobs that pay well. But it requires determination and imagination in the White House. An understanding that we can't look backwards, we have to look forwards. That's what this election has been about. How do we meet 21st century challenges? And when it comes to the healthcare system, we don't have to choose between a government-run healthcare system and the unaffordable one we have now. That's the old argument. Look, if you already got health insurance, the only thing that's going to change is we're going to make sure that we work with the employer to lower your premiums. If you don't have health insurance, like 45 million Americans don't have health insurance, then we're going to make sure you can buy the same kind of health insurance that members of Congress get for themselves, and we will subsidize it if you can't afford it. We will invest in prevention so that we have a health care system instead of a disease care system. We'll emphasize technologies that cut bureaucracy. And if somebody who watched his own mother spend the final months of her life arguing with insurance companies because they claimed her cancer was a pre-existing condition and didn't want to pay for her treatment, I will make sure that insurance companies can never again discriminate against those who are sick and need care the most. That's the